This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the lean builder, Hoots on the ground with no bullshito. And today I got the man, Mr. Kent Hedges, with us. I am excited to dive into who he is because he has been helping me tremendously over the last few weeks with my personal growth, for which I'm very appreciative, Mr. Kent. But I want to dive right in. Say what's up to the people, Kent, and tell us a little bit about who you are.
What's up, Hoots on the Ground? And it's great to be with you, Adam, as always. I've enjoyed so many of these podcasts, and what a privilege and an honor it is to be here with you today. And what a great small world it is. I first met Kean Zandy, oh my gosh, 2000 and maybe 18. And he was a project manager for his previous company. We were working together down in South Texas on a freestanding ED. And I only worked with him for a short amount of time, but I knew then that, man, I needed to know this man. And because he had such a wealth of knowledge. And then here comes the Lean Builder book. And it's one of the ones that I recommend to everybody that I can talk to, because it is such just full of good nuggets of stuff you can use right now, immediately, and to positively impact your project. So thank you, Kean, and your cohort in arms there, Mr. Donarulos. But Adam, it's great to see you again. You and I spent some time together doing some trainings over the last couple of years. And so to get together one-on-one like this is a great privilege for me. So thank you. My name's Kent Hedges. I am a large capital project manager for a big healthcare company based in Austin. I'm a Houston Astros fan, as you can tell, and it's okay. I get a lot of just jealousy rearing its head when I show that. That's okay.
I think I just heard a trash can. I just heard a trash can bang or something. I don't know what that was
But
about.
my 2017 gear, none of it has an asterisk on it, so it doesn't really matter. Of course, I've had a lot of time to be able to craft that response, so that this loaded response. Anyway, I've been in the business construction for 28 years now. I was a civil engineer with the Navy for about the first 12 of it. Always doing big stuff, primarily on the West Coast, and then doing everything from contracts to public works direction to military construction, renovations, new construction, all of it from the military perspective. Then got out and went to work for an outfit out of San Diego doing environmental, actually, leadership. And they did geotech and materials testing, environmental work. And then was on my own for about 3 or 4 years doing my own consulting work, and got to see some really fun parts of the Middle East through that time, which is great. And then, but all construction related. And then left that and started my healthcare journey and my lean journey about 2013, and was blessed to work for some people who really knew what they were doing and opened my mind to a lot of different ways of thinking. And that has just started my journey, and we're still on it today. And I'm probably going to be on it the rest of my life, but I love it. I love what you guys are doing on this podcast and the people that you're reaching. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. And just the flowers you gave us with the podcast and Kean and Joe. And like, man, I think that says a lot about you, because when I ask about who you are, you immediately turn around and deflected. So just know I'm not going to allow too much of that on this podcast as we move forward here. But can you dive a little bit deeper? Because I want to know, what gets Kent fired up? What are you passionate about?
Great question. And I appreciate the opportunity. First and foremost, I'm a man of God. I give all the praise and glory to my Savior, Jesus Christ. Over my years, he has led me to people and interactions that have really matured the way that I lead, the way that I conduct myself. It started with my parents. Both of them have unique characteristics that were totally instilled in me. One is connection, and the other one, I get that from my mom, and the other one is service. I get that one from my dad. And I lost both of them in the last couple of years, but it has reminded me about their true impact on me. And it's really good to be able to use both of those themes in everything I do. I just got back from a lunch that's a longtime connection of mine, friend of mine. And we hadn't talked in a long time. So I was able to just reconnect and just to check in on where we were. Oh, by the way, we're both in the construction business. So how can we serve each other? How can we support each other in what we do day to day? So I try to build both of those in, but the good man upstairs was the perfect example of someone who knows how to serve and lived it, and do my best to work towards that every day.
Amen. I'm assuming you fall short like I do from time to time. Yeah, maybe, maybe not.
Always, we fall short all the time, and just to have that standard that's out there ahead of us is always going to be there. It's perpetual, right? So we've always got some area of our life that we can work on to improve.
I hear you saying connections and service are kind of what you're passionate about. How do you show that? How do you demonstrate? I mean, you mentioned the lunch, but how do you demonstrate connection and service?
Well, I think that there's a lot of different interactions that we have every day, whether it's with our family, our neighbors, coworkers, people on a job site, whatever it is. And am I coming with a true servant's heart, or do I have an agenda? You talked about an initiative you're working on, transparency, and you introduced me to a book recently by Ray Dalio on principles. That's one of the things that he puts together there. What does transparency really mean? Well, to everybody is going to have some kind of but radical transparency is to not hold any secrets. But the only way that you can do that is with a servant's heart. You're not coming with an agenda to a conversation. You gave me a list of questions that you're going to ask me today. Again, that opens me up to what makes me tick, what makes me go, gives me passion to interact with those around me. So it depends on where I'm going. If I'm going to a job site, but I think about who's going to be there with me, what can I learn from them, and how can I give of myself to help them get better and help them to improve. And I just am trying to be very intentional, especially this year is kind of a theme for me, is how can I be more intentional in activating my own God-given gifts and skills to help someone else not only find their own, but then to accentuate and to improve or to help them build their own skills to make us just a better group of people that are just working every day, just trying to get down the road.
Yeah, and if I could, I'm gonna call myself out here because from a service and connection standpoint, we've met a couple of times. One time in the Lean Builder where you actually gave me a ride because we were both at the wrong spot. And so you got me to the right spot. Again, service, connection right there. And then in Indianapolis, we met again. You mentioned a training, trying to get things moving there. And so it was really only two interactions that we had. Now, they were meaningful interactions, but then I also can't remember what it was. I called you or we exchanged emails or texts for 6, 8 months. And then finally I was just like in January, I was like, I'm just gonna call the guy and called you and we had an hour or 2-hour conversation and you really invested in me. You chose to serve me from a help me find my strengths because I am still going through this like period of self-discovery. Who am I? And I was explaining all this to you, and you're like, oh, let me jump in, let me help, let me show you this spreadsheet. Have you read Genius Spark by Rex Miller? Like, and you just like over the top offered yourself up, to which I quickly like, heck yeah, like Kent Hedges, absolutely. And now we're talking bi-weekly, and I've got homework that I got to come back with, and it's been very special to me for one, but it's really helped me. Which again, I was explaining this to you before we went live, but the background is a tree simply because of the growth that you are helping me with. And so I thank you. And I wonder like how many others are out there that you're serving at one time because you're only one person.
I've always said to myself that capacity is a state of mind more than anything else. And so it kind of depends. And really I'm only doing with you what I've done for myself and really trying to figure out what makes me want to get up in the morning, what makes me keep going. We all have those days that are like Groundhog Day, man, for the last 2 months. Maybe somebody's going to the same job site over and over, same kind of thing going on. But we're all people. The bottom line is we're all people just trying to get through. And if there's an opportunity to serve, then I have learned to be intentional and look for those signs. And God brings people. That's right. There's no doubt that He predestined you and I to have this conversation today. And that's going to make some people nervous, and that's okay. But that's the difference, I think, in being on this earth now over 56 years. I've learned and been taught and been willing to relearn a lot of things about just people and interacting with people and truly loving someone else because they're just another person, a good friend. And there's, I can't say there's no agenda. Of course, there's an agenda because my goal is to help you. That's my agenda. And down the road, and you've been helping me actually, not down the road. I mean, you've been helping me not only look at the process that you and I've walked through, because I'm in the middle of actually trying to do this in my entire company for all about 80 project managers in my company. So any interaction, any improvements, any feedback that I can get from those that I'm working with on any part of this, that's going to be nothing but gravy. And so to make an impact, I think that's another bigger picture thing that all of us want to do is because you get to a certain point in your life when you're young, you're just growing, you're just churning out work, you're just doing, you're learning. Middle part of your life, now you're just working. You're kind of getting ready for the third phase. Again, this is out of Ray's book, is you're savoring life. You don't, nobody's really depending on you. Although I still got kids in college and another one's still to go to college. So they're going to be depending on me for a while. But nonetheless, we get to this point where we want to give back, where we think about what's our legacy. We think about how are we going to be remembered? And I'm a firm believer that what we do on earth is definitely setting the table for what we're going to do in heaven. And that is it. I mean, if I can share one nugget of information that you're going to turn around and share with somebody, they're going to continue to share. That's another group that we're a part of, a ripple intent. It's exactly what that's about, is setting an example now that who knows how far, wide, deep, and long it goes.
Yeah. And man, yeah, ripples of impact, ripples of intent. I love it. You just mentioned a few things. The one that sparked me the most is you have learned how to pay attention to the signs, pay attention to the entry points. Where did you develop that skill, or how could other people develop that skill?
Well, again, this was taught to me about 10 years ago when I started my lean journey. And my mentor at the time, and he's still a professional mentor of mine, he sat me down and said, let's go do a strengths assessment. And so we did the Gallup strength assessment, and it opened my eyes to some things that I thought I knew about it myself, but it really made it concrete and it made it something that I could really get my arms around to understand. Oh, that's why I react a certain way to situations. Well, then over the time, I was connected with different people. Another one is a spiritual gifts assessment. Another one is, like you said, Rex Miller and Genius Park. And again, it is just different. And there's a lot of great assessments out there. Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, anyway, several of those. And all of them give you some insights to yourself. Go take them all and start to kind of put a paragraph around what makes you tick, what makes you go. But I had to be taught that, I had to be introduced to that. But through that exercise and through job change and having that downtime, what am I looking for in the next step, in the next chapter of my life? That helped me to really focus on the direction that I'm going to get the most out of, and that somebody else, another company or another entity or whatever, is going to get the best of me. That entire exercise, what you and I have been going through, and it's not a hard one. It just takes effort, and it takes you to be honest and transparent with yourself and call a spade and look at both strengths and weaknesses and really just get into the meat and potatoes of what makes you go. You can't be afraid of it. You can't. You got to lean into that, own it, and that's the way you get better. Hopefully, those that can hear this, it's pretty simple. Go take some assessments. Get somebody around you that believe in you, that want to pour into you, because there are people out there. You can call me, no problem. Call Adam. That's what we're here to do, is to serve. But it's through that connection. If I had not had that connection, I wouldn't be in this position that I'm in now to be able to serve.
Yeah. That was well said. I think God has dropped a half a dozen people in my life in the last 2 months, and I am just growing like wildflowers. It's amazing. And a lot of it has been very intentional growth, discovering who I am so that I know what to grow. Basically, what you did is you sent me on a, hey, go do the Enneagram, go do the disc, go do the spiritual gifts. I think I even found another one. I forget what it was even called now. I did all these and then I lined them up in a spreadsheet, and I was just looking at them side by side, and I'm able to be like, oh, well, that word's kind of like that word. And like now I understand, like I can be a little dominant in conversations. Like this is how people are receiving me. I guess I become a little bit more self-aware, and that has been enlightening to me. I just heard this from Davey Thompson on LinkedIn. It was so good I had to write it. I've been talking to him for the last year or so, but he's the guy I stole the no bullshito thing from. He said, the meaning of your message is in the response that you get. And so if you like, you may want to say something else, but you're being received in a different way. And the faster that you can understand how you're being received, then you can make adjustments on what you're trying to communicate. Where does that land with you?
That is awesome, Adam. There's that little nugget that he put out there that you're now transferring to me and to how many people, millions of people are going to listen to this podcast
Oh, I
and are
hope.
going to take that as well. And it hits me where we have no idea what's going on behind the person that we're talking with. We don't until we have invested time to get to know each other to a level that there is transparency, that there is truth, that there is vulnerability, that it's a safe space. It takes time and it takes effort to build that kind of relationship. And no, you're not going to have, a million of those. You're just not. There's not enough time in the day to do that. But if you can utilize that statement and say, okay, what is going on with that person, then at least we can tailor our response, our support in a way that builds them, in a way that is of service to them. That's the way that kind of hits me. And it's funny, I've got three boys and they're 24, 21, and 18 now. And I apologize all the time to the oldest because he was the first, because I was learning how to be a dad and I messed it up a ton. And now they all think the youngest one gets away with everything because we're just tired parents and we let him do whatever he wants. But it's not that way, of course. But just the same way it is at work, where am I willing to get to know that person, that coworker, enough to say, hey, are you okay? Let's take a step back. Maybe in a meeting or an OAC or a job site huddle or whatever, that you just know because you've been working with them for a while, something's off. Be willing to be vulnerable, to pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on with you today? And it may be something that has nothing to do with work, but it's impacting their being able to execute well where you need them. And so, but again, the hard part of that is, in order to jump into somebody else's business, we've got to be willing to be open and vulnerable and able to talk and to mess up. It's okay, by the way. I say things all the time with my peer group in the office, and I think, guys, I'm going to completely say this wrong. And I'm going to say this with nothing but love in my heart, and then I'll say what I think. That's an opinion. It's not always fact. Sometimes it is fact. Hopefully I try to get more factual than opinion. But I try to lead with love in my heart so that the conversation can be authentic. It can be transparent, and we get to the heart of the issue.
Yeah, that's what lean builders do. That's all like as you're sitting here talking, I'm just like, man, that's exactly what lean builders do. We lead with transparency and vulnerability, and we set the tone and make the environment safe so that other people can do that the same. I love that. We've been talking for 20 minutes already, and we haven't dropped the term lean other than the intro. But your two gifts, like I keep anchoring back to that, it was connection and service. Like those, I think, really describe lean in general to me. I'm curious, how would you describe what a lean builder is?
I'm going to steal this phrase from, I don't know where, maybe it's a combination of things, but to me, it's the relentless pursuit of the elimination of waste. And so that is a very broad, I think can apply to just about at least in my world, it applies everywhere. For long years, I made my lunches for my kids. Okay, how many times am I opening the refrigerator? How many times am I walking to the pantry? How many plastic bags am I making for all the different pieces? I mean, you can streamline that, and I have over the years. But then you take it to work, of course, and what we do with healthcare construction, oh my goodness, it's just wrought with waste. Now, most people are just kind of going through, just trying to get things done. And they don't have the eyes open to see, wow, that process or downtime, the 8 wastes. I mean, you could go to town on, many hours are devoted right now on YouTube to every single one of those parts of that, but the 8 wastes. And so I've just learned again to look for it and to think about, okay, what are we learning and how can we make that better next time? Well, we're going to duplicate that process again or not. Or even when it comes to relationships, how much energy do we spend through formality, through political correctness? I know it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary because that's not being, that's, you don't want to be rude, right? You want to make sure you're taking care of people. But there comes a time where you hope you can get to a point where the conversation is really getting to the heart of matters and not just circling around. I joked about myself. I could talk 360 degrees around an issue all my life. I still can without ever hitting the heart of the matter. Well, I need to get better at that and saying, okay, let's understand what's the problem we're trying to solve. What is the heart of the disconnection that we're having in this process or this relationship or whatever? So to me, that's where lean comes in, is just that relentless pursuit of the elimination of waste in everything that I do.
Yeah, can I add something? Or maybe I'll just ask the question and see where you take it. How do people fit into that definition of lean or a lean builder?
Well, I think it depends on kind of where you are. Like right now, I'm sitting in front of my laptop at my house chatting with you. I've got another couple of calls this afternoon. Okay. They're looking a lot at process. One of the things that I'm really good at is to do the value stream of a process. We say, okay, if there are 10 steps now, can we make it 9? Can we make it 8? Can we make it 7? Why is this step in there, that step in there? So that's the more practical side of it. The mental side of it, though, is okay, I need to give myself time to prepare, to get my mind right, to think about, okay, who is it that I'm about to have the conversation with? Is there something subconsciously that's going on or that has been going on that's going to put a barrier between us to be able to have this conversation? You and I talked about this before. Too often we put problems, excuse me, I'm using my phone, between us, meaning that's automatically there's a barrier. Whereas if we came to the side and said, okay, we're working on this same problem together, it's a completely different approach. So
Yes.
I've tried to be more intentional about saying, okay, number one, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Let's agree on that. Then number two, I got to come with an open heart, an open mind, willing to change my perception, my approach based on someone else's perspective. Again, this is right out of Ray Dalio's book, Principles. But it's kind of refreshed that and really solidified it to me to say, okay, we may end up agreeing to disagree, but we understand each perspectives. And I'm not going to be the senior person on the next call. I've got to make sure that I'm shutting up when I need to shut up, give my opinion when it's asked of me, talk about facts when it's asked of me, but do it with an open heart. Do it with a genuine need, desire to help solve that problem. And anybody can use that in anything you do. Kids taking a test. Come on. Oh my gosh. How many times have the kids said, hey, you got a test coming up in 6 weeks? Awesome. Let's pool plan that. No, Dad, I'm not going to do that. Right. Okay. Well, then, they end up they cram the night before and they do fine. Of course, it works out. That's how we do our projects, right? We cram at the end because we think we know what to do. And we do. And by and large, but how much more could we be of value to the project, to each other, if we take a little bit more time and think it through before we just go and execute?
Yeah, we know what to do, but oftentimes we underestimate the level of effort that it takes to do it. And I think that's a human nature thing. I love what you just said. Like that, it just clicked in my head when you were talking. That is why visualization is so powerful and works, because all of a sudden, the problem isn't between me and you. The problem is on the wall, and it's me and you solving that problem over there. And so, yeah, I'm a firm believer in visualization. The only thing that I'm dying to add to your definition, and I just want to see where it lands with you, is the relentless pursuit of the elimination of waste to benefit the people.
I agree with you completely. And I try to think of this is from my last planner roots, with Kristen Hill giving me the training in Orlando back in 2013. God bless her. It's a gut punch. She's leaving LCI, but what are you going to do? But that was the
Retiring,
end user, right? The end person and to me, since I'm on the owner's side, it's that technician in 5 years from now is going to be trying to fix something in a building that I worked on a team to build, and we've created a problem for him. Or it's that electrician that's trying to run that line, or that the plumber the plumber's helper, that the guys on the ground who are making this happen, how can I, where I sit, and how can we as a team make it easier for that person to do what they need to do? Because again, it comes back to, yeah, we're serving them. It may not be directly, but hey, don't put a grab bar over the top of an access panel to a toilet mechanism, because what's the technician have to do? They have to come and bring that bar off of there. Then they get into, come on, we can do better than that, people. Come on, we can. Why are there, what is it? 8 hot dog buns, but 12 hot dogs in a pack? I mean, come on. What do you, I know that's a scam, but I mean, it's all kind of stuff like that, right? Step back, take a bigger picture and think through, okay, if we take this action, these are the possible 5 why. There you go. What could happen? What are unintended consequences? We fall prey. The biggest unintended consequence that I deal with every day, and it's internal, is I know best.
Yep.
Dude, I've been doing certain things for so long. I know exactly what to do. I've done it. Leave me alone. Let me go execute. No. That's so short-sighted, and it's not really welcoming someone else. So my subconscious is going crazy about an issue. Why am I listening to a person who's never done this before in their life, that is, a brand new person in the industry? I got 30 years in. I've done this. Shut up, Ken. Stop. Listen, and then work together to find out what's the right solution. Part of what I think is right, part of what they think is right, is probably going to be the right answer. Sometimes it's what they think is right is 100% the answer. Sometimes what I think is right is 100% answer. But I've got to be willing to go down that road, open myself up to change, and keep moving forward.
I'll tell you, I find when somebody offers a differing opinion to me, my natural instinct is to just be like, exactly what you're saying. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Whatever, go pound sand. And I think that's a lot of the industry's same perspective. When in those moments when I've chosen to lean into what that difference is, that's where I learn something. I've never heard the hot dog and hot dog bun thing. That is hilarious and so true. And we've had that fight in our house already, of just running out of buns for hot dogs. But I think it's interesting because when you said that, it made me think of the construction industry, and we've all heard about the silos in the industry, and it's real. There's a lot of siloed thinking, but what we don't lean into very often is this concept of systems thinking, or thinking in system, which is the antithesis of exactly that. So, where are you at on systems thinking?
I completely support it. I think that unfortunately, there's not enough folks out there that have a lot of experience to be able to train and to share their knowledge with others. But I think that's where we need to go. I think that keeping that bigger picture, and we are fighting in the lean business, we are fighting against centuries of experience of, yep, leave me alone. I know how to build. Let me just go do this. Yeah, I know you know how to build, but are you willing to let me give you a thought about a process or some aspect of what you're doing day to day that could help you get better or to help your bottom line? We have to share the benefits, and we're not willing. Sometimes our egos are so big that we're not willing to relax that enough to be vulnerable enough to learn from someone else because of some preconceived idea that you know everything. It's in my own selfishness, but that's pride. Right? That's my ego. That is one of those things that we just struggle at. We're human. And so we don't want to look bad. We don't want to look vulnerable. We don't want to look like we don't know. But in reality, we're all in the same boat. We all are in the same boat. We don't know 100% about everything. We don't. But I'm going to surround myself with people who know a lot more about things than I do. And there's a lot of areas of my life, even my faith walk, that I think I'm pretty far down the road. I am not even close to some friends of mine and mentors of mine that are helping me get better. And of course, there's always just the book itself that you can spend time in and learn every day. But it doesn't really matter what the issue is, whether it's a professional issue, personal issue, mental issue, physical issue. There are people that know so much more about those things than you if you're willing to go seek them out. And unfortunately, we're not that willing. I'm too busy. It's not a priority right now. I'll get to it later. No, you need to think about how you're going to do that because somebody's watching you. Somebody's looking to you to be that person, you to be that mentor, that subject matter expert. If you're not willing to change or to grow or to listen and learn, you're just going to be frustrated, and you're going to have more gray hair than me. It's going to fall out faster than me. And you're going to find yourself in your 50s and 60s with, man, I'm just not fulfilled. I spent all this time, all this effort. I'm not fulfilled. People joke with me all the time, and I joke with myself all the time. Kid, how you doing? I'm living the dream. Are you kidding me? Look at this. Now, of course, my strength, my number one is positivity. So that gives it away. And my number two is woo. So that tells you a lot about me. But I get to hang out with people that are helping me get better. I do. And I try to surround myself with people who are doing that with a genuine want to do that. And we talked about this before. Am I filling somebody else's bucket, or am I taking away from somebody's bucket? As long as I can give and fill more buckets than I'm taking out of, because I know I take out of people's buckets. My kids will tell you I'm taking out of their buckets. My wife will tell you, of 30 years, I take away from her bucket sometimes, but she's filled mine up so far beyond full. It's crazy.
That's the give and take. I mean, you can't fill other people's buckets if you don't fill your bucket. So, I mean, that's important to have those people around you that understand that relationship and are willing to fill that bucket, because you can't continue to do and serve others if you have an empty bucket. What are you going to pour? The phrase that keeps ringing in my head is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. How many times have we heard that on a job site? Well, guess what? It's always broken, and
It's
we can
all broken.
always
That's
make
right.
it better. Yeah. Well, I want to dive in. I know you're a huge member of the lean community at large. And so I want to dive in and really understand, like, how are you using that connection and service foundation to serve that lean community at large?
Great question. And in fact, probably a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to join a community of practice called the Healthcare Owners, that's facilitated by Vic Sanvito with Southland. And we just had our call yesterday. I mean, I'm talking to other folks that are in the same boat as me from all over the country, and it's just a easy roundtable. We talk about what's top of mind, and then we walk through some of those things and we share ideas. And between calls, I'll shoot a note to 3, 4, 5 of those guys and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What is your take on this? Or what was your approach to it? I mean, I look at my friend Digby Christian out there at Sutter, and my friends at Kaiser Permanente. They're a little bit further down in their lean walk, and some others that are just getting started or whatever. And I just reach out and I ask them, hey, we're struggling with this. What is your take? And I look for that input. And whether I use it or not is not the issue. I'm connected with these guys who are just so much more experienced in these areas than me. I'm just utilizing it. That's all. I'm just reaching out, and they reach out to me sometimes on some things, seeking my thoughts or my opinions. I joked at lunch today with my friend about, we're both of the same vintage where we used to have a Rolodex, right? You truly have your business cards in a Rolodex, right? Of course, it's not that way.
Can you explain what a Rolodex is, just in case that
Yeah,
person's out?
so everybody's got a business card, right? And I used to have them in my desk right here. Just a small portion of them. Everybody's got a bunch of business cards, right? And so back in the day, you used to have this, and it was a round thing that you spin, and it's got alphabetized, sections, A, B, C, D, et cetera. Well, then you put your business cards inside that, and you stapled them together. And so, I need to find Adam's contact information. Okay, I'm going to roll over to Hoots. Okay, there's his card, and there's his number and his email. Good to go. Of course, now it's all on your phone, but that's a Rolodex. That's it. LinkedIn is a great Rolodex. Oh my goodness, grow, reach out, connect with people. What a great resource. When I was between jobs, I lived on LinkedIn. Who do I know in this industry? Who do I know in this town? Who do I know wherever? I learned that from my mom, actually. I was a swimmer growing up all over Southeast Texas, and we had family all over the place. And when we would go for these meets on the weekends, we didn't have a lot of money. So do we have a family member somewhere within an hour of the meet that we could stay with, spend the night? So that's exactly what we do now, just on a professional level, to say, hey, Adam, I'm going to be in South Carolina in a couple of months. Let's get together for lunch. Okay, that's it. I mean, that's how those connections work. And that's how this great lean community has really brought me vision and visibility on people that are struggling just like me, that are looking for just a little bit of ways, little bitty steps to get better, step by step, incremental improvement, working together to just get through.
Yeah, I love the healthcare owners getting together. I think that's imperative. When we can learn through peer groups, there is no other better learning, because these people have been there, they have stories. That's where humans learn the best. There's not been one time where I have reached out on LinkedIn to somebody and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods and would love to get a coffee or lunch." And they every single time people are like, "Absolutely, let's make it happen." And you develop like again, like you're saying, I went with no agenda. And it's just like, "Hey, what's on your mind? What's happening? What's going on?" Like those type of questions, those open-ended, inquisitive, interested questions can really kick off and lead to some pretty interesting relationships. So I love that point of advice. Like if you're not using LinkedIn yet, go and do it now. Send those connection requests with a little note that says, "Hey, I'm so and so, and this is what I'm passionate about." I guarantee you'll get responses that you never thought you'd get. Now, there might be one or two who won't respond or who are better than that or whatever, but I guarantee you 95% of the people will respond because they're real people. So I always ask this question on the show, and because a bunch of them drive me nuts: culture, respect for people, like all of those things I cannot stand. Pretty much the words that have been played out back in the day. Not that I don't think they're important concepts. Like, please don't send any hate mail. Culture and respect for people are ultra critical, paramount, but they've been used so many times that nobody knows what they mean. And so I'm curious, like, what are those words or phrases that get under your skin?
Great question. And like you said, I'm with you. There's a lot. And the longer that we're in this business, the more that we hear and we feel and we watch happen right in front of us. I think the biggest one for me is just, and I try to in front of project teams to establish some very basic tenets up front. And a lot of that is condition satisfaction. That's a great tool to use to really, okay, guys, let's get our arms around what we're trying to get out of this. We want to, of course, you want to be profitable, you want to learn something, but and I'll tell you, again, as an owner, I've got a little bit more sway in there than just another partner that's in the meeting, but it should not be that way. And I try hard not to play the owner card, but it does give me the platform to say, listen, this is a safe space and I am just as equal in this thing as anybody else. And I'm going to be the first one that says, I don't understand. Please tell me if I'm speaking out of turn or if I'm going down the wrong road and you know that, let's bring it up. Let's talk about it. It's when they're closed-minded, they're not willing to learn. And listen, I've been in a ton of IPD, true IPD, where you're sharing profit, where it becomes very evident within the first few months of the project that somebody's not playing like the rest. And it's just a conversation. And I've been on both sides of those conversations where, hey, listen, we're very open and transparent as a group. And project manager there is not really playing like the rest of us. And you can continue on or you can leave. And it's okay. We will pay you what you've done. And it's happened. They voted themselves off the island, so to speak. But I think that's the thing. If somebody's not willing to improve, not willing to learn, be transparent for the good of the project, which for the good of the project also means for the good of the people that are executing the project, that's kind of the one that drives me crazy. But again, as an owner, I don't hear that a lot, right? Unless I spend that's why I love spending time in the trailer. I go to sites. I don't want to just sit in an OAC. I want to sit to the foreman meeting. I want to listen to what's going on in the field. And luckily, I've been trained by a lot of foremen, a lot of superintendents. This goes back to my Navy days when I was an officer working for some very strong senior enlisted that sat me down and said, listen, let me just tell you how this is going to go. And I was smart enough to shut up and listen. And the same way in the construction field, there's some people out there that absolutely don't need you as a project manager. They don't. They know exactly what to do. Great. How can I learn from them? How can I watch the way they lead? And oh, by the way, have you heard about this lean thing where you're not like busting a vein every time you're standing in front of the other supers? Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about delivery a little bit. So I think that's it. Willingness to grow, willingness to learn, willingness to be vulnerable.
Yeah, you just described the fixed mindset to me. It's like if somebody's got a fixed mindset, you just better stay away from Kent because he's going to weed you out like no one it's business.
Well, I don't want to take ownership of weeding them out. I want to make it so evident that they weed themselves out.
Yep.
Right. I don't want to be that guy. And I don't think I've ever been that guy, but we've all been around those people that say, no, you're out. You're done. Move along. No, what are we learning from that? We treat each other so poorly. We do in general terms. I tell you, I don't, like I said, I got two 20 somethings and and an older teenager. I don't know how they function in today's social world. I don't, because they're getting beat up left and right. What a revelation when my now 18-year-old, probably a year and a half, came in and said, I'm getting off Facebook. Oh my God, yay, God. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? That's just, I've done something. But no, he got sick of it. He just got sick of it. But we allow it. We tolerate that on our job sites. We tolerate that in our meetings. Stop. Just stop and try to care for somebody on the other side, because you have no idea.
What's the first stop? Like, what's the first thing to do when trying to stop that?
Call it out to me.
When you see it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the stop. Throw the red flag. Throw the, what are the other things? Tools that we've used in the past on IPD jobs. If you something's gone, that you can throw things that are soft enough that's not going to hurt anybody. The elbow, call it out. That's a tool. Is the elbow. And but you've got to be. And if it's significant enough that it's not going to matter who's in the conversation. If it is something that's more character driven that you see over and over repeated by the same person, that might be a take them aside and say, hey, something's going on. And it could be, you've never said something like that. What is going on? That's a private conversation. So you've got to learn through mentorship, through doing it, just to get more comfortable on what's the right methodology to address it. But if it festers inside a team, oh my goodness, it's just that's that whole speed of trust, right? Trust goes up, speed of the project goes up. Trust goes down, speed of the project goes down. Cost goes up, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation there without a question. Man, you get me fired up. We treat people awful. And I believe it takes much more effort in order to treat people bad than it does to treat people nice. I mean, you could literally smile at somebody and keep on moving. And I would consider that nicer than just walking past somebody, right? Like, it's that simple, as to just smile at somebody.
You do know that it takes fewer muscles in your body to make a smile than it does a frown?
I did not know that science. In fact, you may have mentioned that to me once. I don't know if I was frowning or what at the time, but
No, it's just, but you're right. Everybody has something to give. Everybody does. And that's a smile. If nothing else, it's a smile.
yeah, man, beautifully said. You're clearly a special person. Like, you are different. You are unique. You are what I would consider an old dog. And please don't take any offense to that, because that does not mean old person by any means. It means you have that growth mindset, that people first mentality, where you want to go and serve and you want to make the project better for the people doing the work. And so I want to really just shout out some of the people that have really crafted you into the person that you've become today. You mentioned Kristen Hill already with the last planner system. You mentioned a mentor early on. I don't think you dropped a name, but who are those people that shaped Kent Hedges?
Well, like I said at the beginning, the first and foremost, it's Jesus Christ is my ultimate mentor. Of course, my parents, my wife, my kids, they have all, beat me into submission or propped me up or whatever was needed at the appropriate time. But a high school band director was a big influence on me. Another longtime friend of mine, over 25 years. We've been in business together. Just a friend, just both my faith mentor, one of my faith mentors, one of my business mentors. In this business, Bill Seed was my first boss. He's the VP of Design and Construction down there at Jackson Healthcare in Miami. And another group of guys that we all kind of ran together early days of in 2013, 14 at UHS. John Bennett, who's now the VP of Design and Construction at Lehigh Valley Health System, and Tim Ott, who's an independent consultant with Lean, and Christian Piquel, who's been all over LCI. I mean, I was just, God put me in their paths for a reason. And I learned so much from those men and those professionals. But they all took time to get to know me. They all took time to understand where I needed to be pushed and challenged. And yeah, Kristen Hill was a great mentor of mine. And again, just learning those early tools and all the different project teams I've been on. And a lot of times I've been the only one in the room that knew anything about Lean. Okay, we're just going to try a tool. Let's try Last Planner. Okay, let's just see how it goes. Some of them have been great, and we've been able to stretch into other things. Some have been a disaster. We've had to pull back a little bit. Kurt Andre, one of the great consultants, friends of mine, Rex Miller. These are the guys more on the people side of the house. And how do we treat each other? And how do we look introspectively and find out how to just be good people? Man, my Rolodex is pretty big. And I know that I'm leaving out a lot of people that, and as soon as we're done, I'm going to think of 5 more. But those are the initial ones right off the bat. But at the same time, I can go back to one of my first bosses in the Navy. Drove me nuts. Hated working for him. I really did. I just did not want to get up every day to go work for that man. But I learned how not to do things, and learning how not to do something is just as powerful as learning how to do something. I think we take away pieces of a lot of those interactions with people in our lives that come in for maybe a short chapter, and others are going to be there for books and books. Are we willing to listen to what they have to say? Because typically they do have something good to say. They do. Everybody does. Or willing to filter it out and find it and how it can benefit us.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. And as you're sitting there talking, like you mentioned your project teams, and I don't want to like make any of your project teams sad or upset, but I'm really curious, like, and you don't have to use company names or even project names, but can you describe from an healthcare owner's perspective what the ideal project team feels like?
When I typically, and I think I've talked to you about this before, when we go through interviews, I want the project manager and the superintendent. That's it. I don't need anybody else in the room because 6 months into the job, I'm standing there, we've dealing with an issue. I need the right players that are given, again, the last planners, the guys that are given the decision-making authority to say, yep, this is how to solve it, and this is where we're going to go. Or I got this idea, you got this idea, we've got this idea, and let's power through those ideas, solve it, and then move on. I got one team, several teams, several hundred RFIs on a project. It drives me nuts. Like, just pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone. The positives. It's easier to kind of describe it of what it's not, or that because we live in that every day.
Yeah.
But I think that mutual respect, and you mentioned that's one of the tenets of lean, right? Mutual respect, transparency, willingness to be vulnerable, thinking of the project as the focus, not the siloed trade or your own perspective, your own part of the puzzle. It all comes right back around to just how we treat each other. It really does. Because if you've got a good team, that's why I would love to get to a point eventually where I'm just taking the same project team around. If I'm going to spend time getting on a plane, flying to Portland, flying to Denver, away from my family to go work, then there's some very basic things that I put in that criteria. And sometimes the teams fit that bill. Sometimes the people within those teams fit that bill. Sometimes the people don't. And that's okay. But I think those are some of the key areas, just the respect for each other. That's the one. And you know immediately within the first 10 minutes of the first time you ever get together in a group, who's going to be on that train and who's not. And I love that because I want the challenging ones. The ones that are on it, that's great. I'm coming from the owner's perspective. So for me, I've got a little more sway there. But I feel comfortable enough in my own skin to be able to bring up the hard topics, get it on the table. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Yeah.
Man, you're like, I don't want you to stop. I want you to keep going. You're getting me excited. It's like how we treat people, and you can feel it. I'm a firm believer that I could predict the success of a project if you just bugged the field office with a little microphone and I was able to measure tone of voice and amount of questions. I believe between those two things, we could predict the outcomes of projects. And it's probably just my wild thoughts or thinking patterns that's going on here, but I really believe that. And so we're coming down here to the end, and I want you to kind of just tell it, like, what is your message to the world, to the next generation? Like, what are the construction for? What do we need to hear from Kent Hedges? What is your message?
Well, first off, thanks, Adam. I really appreciate the time and it goes by so quick when you just talk about stuff that you're passionate about. And I thank you for what you're doing and the effort that it takes to put this on for the few years you've been doing it. I know that it's not easy, but I've been watching from afar, and all the different folks that you've brought on are just amazing people. I think that's the message, is to recognize that we are surrounded by people who are dedicated to what they do in a manner that can be unconventional. It can be scary. It can be challenging. It can be completely opposed to what you believe and what you think. I think my focus is really, or my message is really, to Treat each other with fairness. Come to conversations with love in your heart. Put the issue out in front of the group, not between, because your outcomes are going to be so much more predictable. Like you said, the risk versus the reward. If you risk of yourself a little bit, the reward is crazy awesome. But we don't risk very often. We want to be in our own kind of shell and stay in our own comfortable space, when in fact, we're able to learn and grow from others even more. But again, I'm just trying to follow the big man upstairs who sent his son to be there for us and to show us that perfect example of love and service and connection. So that's pretty much my message.
Amen. Love, serve, and connect, because that's what lean builders do. I love it, Kent. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the message. I very much value you.
Thanks, buddy.